Hi Stampers, Purple Lizard here. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm really excited to talk to you about the Royal Peacock stamp set and the Noble Peacock suite that coordinates with it. So in this suite there's this photopolymer stamp set with beautiful peacock. There is a die set. It's the detailed Peacock dies. And in the die set, there's another beautiful peacock. He's very detailed. And a peacock that cuts out the stamp. Some branches. A really nice peacock feather. And these two outline this stamp right here. And also in the suite, there is the Beads and Baubles Embellishment Embossing folder. And the embossing folder is a 6x6 embossing folder. And this is the design that it does. There is also the Noble Peacock Specialty Designer Series paper. This paper has 3 designs with 2 sheets of each design. It's really shiny. I'm going to try not to make it reflect too bad. This one is Blueberry Bushel and Night of Navy. And then this one is the Pretty Peacock and Coastal Cabana. Like this lighter color here matches really nicely with the Coastal Cabana. And the darker color looks really good with the Pretty Peacock. This one is Old Olive and Granny Apple Green. So like it matches really nicely with both of those colors. So that was the Noble Peacock Specialty Designer Series paper is what this one is. And again, there's 3 designs and 2 sheets of each. Another pack of paper that coordinates with this suite is the Noble Peacock foil paper. I believe there's 3 sheets of 3 designs in this one. This one is the Blueberry Bushel, and then there's the Old Olive, and the Pretty Peacock. And again, I think those also, all 3 look good with Night of Navy, the Granny Apple Green, or Coastal Cabana. Oh, and do you like my nail polish in honor of today's suite? Yeah. So, next in this suite is, oh, there's some really pretty ribbon. This is beautiful ribbon. It's really nice and shiny on one side with, it sort of has tones of the Pretty Peacock and of the Granny Apple Green. And then on this side, it's the Pretty Peacock. So isn't that pretty? It's almost like a chameleon look to it. And then last but not least, most importantly, honestly, there's the bling. There's the Noble Peacock rhinestones in 5 different colors. You can see I used a bunch. I tried not to go too crazy. I made a bunch of cards that from this suite that I'm going to show you. I tried not to put too much bling on them. I honestly think every suite should have beautiful shiny bling in it because that's one of my favorite things. But I tried not to go overboard so that you can see that you don't also always have to have bling on everything. So let's talk about this stamp set. So there is this really lovely peacock, and then it has the detailed second stamp. So this is a 2-step stamp. So you stamp the peacock, and then on top of him you stamp this, and it stamps details inside the feathers and outside and up his back to make it a 2-step stamp. And then there's also a thing that sort of looks like the plume on his head, which is nice for just background detail stamping, and then same for the flower. The sentiments on here are encouraging sentiments. So very proud of you. You did it. You are incredible. Congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. And here's to an exciting future full of new adventures. I know lots of people I could send all of those to, actually. This stamp set has a lot of online support. If you like to have lots of demonstrations and things that you can look at, then this is the stamp set for you, because there's definitely a lot of online support, a lot of Pinterest and Instagram and YouTube videos about this stamp set. So I also have a tip for how to get this peacock to stamp out and cut out perfectly every time. If you stick around till the end of the video, I'm going to show you that. If you purchase this stamp set, you're going to need to have the F block or the Stamparatus, because this peacock, it's bigger than this actually, and so it doesn't fit on the E block. It will only fit on this F block or the Stamparatus, just in case. So yeah, let me show you some of the cards that I've made with this. I really went all out. I'm going to move my camera down some so that I make sure you can see all the cards. I loaded up my Stamparatus with the pretty peacock, and I stamped away. I stamped him in every color possible, and I am going to call him a him because only the males are called peacocks and only the males are pretty. And so it is a him. He is beautiful. The females are called peahens, not peacocks. So here I stamped him in Granny Apple Green and the pretty peacock. And then I used that really beautiful ribbon with the foil paper and some pretty peacock cardstock. This is the everyday label punch, and the back one is the correct size of it. And then from there on, I just punched a little bit off of the edge to make it fit into there. So, also before I came on, I had the worst sneezing fit on the first video that I did. I had to totally delete it and start over because I had a bad sneezing fit. It's raining around here, and so I'm going to try to make it through this one. I feel like it's coming on again. So, of course, I made one in the beautiful Highland Heather. And I also used the purple posy with this one. I did manage to get the ink before they canceled it. I'm hearing that it's supposed to be soon. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed because this is just the most beautiful ink. Mine it worked like a distressed ink. It didn't really stamp crisp, so I know what they were talking about. So I do hope they get the formula right and one day put it on the market. So this is Highland Heather and Purple Posy cardstock. Then I cut the feather out with the Highland Heather. This is some old ribbon from last catalog. And then, of course, I stamped him in the Purple Posy, and then on the second stamp, I stamped with the Highland Heather. And then I went back with the marker and did a little bit more detail on his head. See that? Yep, I think that was all I was going to tell you about that one. So this next one, I stamped him with the Blueberry Bushel, and then I went back and I sort of used my watercolor brush and just ran some of the ink, the green ink. I think I used Granny Apple Green, not Old Olive. No, it looks like Old Olive. I used Old Olive on this one, and then went back and did a little bit of a watercolor wash with it. Same with the plume. And then this punch is called the Everyday Label Punch. And the stamp is from Forever Lovely stamp set. The ribbon around his neck is from the Marigold, or the Magnolia ribbon. Marigold, I don't know where I got that. So, oh yeah, here he is in Mambo Melon. That's what this one is. So I stamped him in Mambo Melon, and then I went back and stamped actually I stamped the top part of him with Mambo Melon and the bottom part of him with Highland Heather. And then when I went back with the second stamp, I stamped the top, inked the top part of it with Bermuda Bay and the bottom part of it with the Mambo Melon and stamped it. That was how I did him. And then I did a little bit of watercolor wash, and this was sponged on, and it's stamped with the pretty peacock. And let's see, it's cut out with the stitched shaped dies for the circle, and then this is the nested label die. And oh, the folder on this one. Notice that folder? This is going to be your only sneak peek into the catalog that comes out next month, the holiday catalog, 2019 holiday catalog. So this is one of the embossing folders in that catalog. I thought it went really lovely with this peacock. This is it. That's going to be your only sneak peek for the catalog. Oh, let me see. Was that everything? Let's see. This is some striped, I believe it's just called striped ribbon in the Bermuda Bay. I think it comes in Gorgeous Grape too. Let's see. Yep, I think that was all I was. Oh, the stamps, the sentiment came from the Florist Phrases stamp set. That one is still a good a stamp set that's in the catalog. And of course I stuck the bling of every color on. Here's the Gorgeous Grape one, and that to me looks like the Blushing Bride maybe, and a pretty peacock. Next, oh, so I looked up pictures of the peacocks, images to see what they look like, and of course there was a white peacock, an albino peacock, and this one I did like simple stamping as I go. I stamped him with embossing ink, and then I embossed him with white embossing powder, and that's one of the sentiments from the stamp set. And I put a little pearl on his head. He's just on black and white. That's about as simple stamping as Purple Lizard gets right there. Oh, here's a surprise. Look, I made him into a Christmas card. So I stamped him in the shaded spruce, and then this is some retired 6x6 Poppy Parade. I didn't have any Christmas paper, and this was the closest thing I had to Poppy Parade because he's stamped in shaded spruce, and then the accents are the Poppy Parade. And I used the branches from the die set. This is the classic label punch, and that is an old stamp. It was a wooden stamp. That's how old it was. Let's see. Oh, this one was just kind of cute. I liked this one because when I stamped him in the Balmy Blue and the Blueberry Bushel, he was just really pretty. And then I was just using some of the scraps, on the back. And then the feathers are really pretty in the foil paper. Here he is in the, let me see, Rococo Rose is, I stamped his body in Rococo Rose, and then the accents are in black. And the paper is the 6x6 in color DSP. For the back of the peacock, I cut it out. I cut out the shape of the peacock. Where did I put them? Oh, here it is. I cut out the shape of the peacock in black. Just the shape. And then I cut it out twice, and I offset part of it this way and offset part of it that way, and that was how I got the shadow of the peacock. The bling is from the faceted dots, and the sentiment, of course, is from the stamp set. And this is the scalloped lace trim. I thought he turned out really pretty in pink. Pretty in pink. And of course, the colors I mainly wanted to do him in, it was hard to restrain myself, was just the pretty peacock and the foil paper. I used the embossing folder on this one. So with him, he is actually stamped on vellum. And then I went back and did the accents with gold embossing. And then I colored him with the markers. And he sort of has like a stained glass effect to him. I put a white piece behind him so that he would stand out more. Of course, I used that pretty reversible ribbon. The die is from the rectangle stitch dies. This was one of my favorite ones. I thought he came out really pretty. Sorry. And so here he is. I tried not to just stick him right in the middle of the page on every one of them. So there's one without him in the middle of the page. I stamped him in the blueberry bushel, pretty peacock, and the old olive, and just staggered him down the page. Here's that specialty designer paper. And this is just the everyday label punch, I believe is what it's called. And then the branches. So one of the branches punches or cuts solid, and well, two of them cut solid like this, and one of them has the inside parts of the leaves cut out. And oh, here's one that shows better. Here we go. So two of them are like this, and one of them is like this. So with this card, I used the embossing folder, the Beads and Baubles embossing folder. I ran it through, this is Granny Apple Green, I just ran it through once, and then on the next one, I inked the embossing inside of the embossing folder and ran it through again on the Granny Apple Green, and I thought it had a really neat effect. It went with the ribbon really nice. I really like this one. With this one, the peacock is just stamped once. I inked it in Old Olive, and then I put a little bit of peacock, and then I inked it with blueberry bushel and then stamped it. That's how I got that effect. Also, with this one, I wanted to show you that you don't have to get the dies in order to cut out the peacock. He's not that hard to cut out, the die. I fussy cut this one, and it wasn't that hard. So you don't have to get the dies. Don't let that scare you away from this stamp set, because you can fussy cut that guy. Let's see. Oh, here's another one where I used the embossing folder with ink. I thought that really added a lot to that embossing folder, to ink it up first and then send it through. This guy is stamped in blueberry bushel, and then I went back, I went back and did the gold embossing. And then there's one of the pretty feathers done in the, this is with the gold foil paper. Same with the accent behind it. And on the inside of this one, I took one of the feathers and I just inked around it with a sponge. And that's what I did for the inside. Didn't show you most of the insides. Sorry. Okay, so those were the cards that I mainly just stamped on. With these cards, these are some of the cards that I mainly just used the dies. So with this card, I took, and I have it here. Sorry, it got wet sitting on my table, but I wanted to show you how I did this one. So I just took a piece of Whisper White, And with a sponge, I sponged Blueberry Bushel, and then the Peacock, and then the Old Olive. And then I cut the Peacock out, and I made sure and just offset him. We did that with the Hummingbird also, so that whenever you stack them on top of each other, that you come up with green at one end and green at the other, so that they stack on top. Otherwise, he would just blend right in there. So that's how I did him. This one is just on the balmy blue with the gorgeous gray. No, with the granny apple green, with some white baker's twine, and one of the stamps from the stamp set. I thought this one came out really cute too. I don't think I did anything on the inside of that one. This is one where I just used the dies. So this is the detailed Peacock Die. Isn't he pretty? He is so pretty. So this one's cut out on the gold foil paper. And with this gold foil paper, you can see what they mean when they call these die sets. You'll notice that they're calling them cut and emboss. And what they mean by the emboss is, if you look closely at this peacock, all those little details that it has come up with. Oh, here we go. Here are these. All these little details that it embosses into the paper, not just cuts. It's not just a flat looking peacock. There's some texture and embossing to it. So I just wanted to point that out. I also used on this one, this ribbon is the scalloped linen ribbon in the peacock color. It goes nicely with this, of course, because it's the peacock. And then these are the branches that the dies cut. I don't think I put anything on the inside. Oh, I did. I stamped. Couldn't get away with not stamping. Let's see. This one, oh, this one came out pretty. This one is the peacock with, it's on black with the specialty paper I cut from the nested dies, and this one is from the foil paper from the nested dies. Now, in order to get that peacock, because you see I cut him out first in black, and you can you see how it has the texture on it? I just love that. I like it when a die is not just flat looking. So anyway, I cut him out in black first, and then you can, if you cut the other one out that cuts the stamp out, well, he's facing the wrong way, of course, but if you flip him over, he is too big. But what I did do was I just took, of course I can't find any scissors right now, I just took and cut with the shape of the bird. And so this part, it matches up pretty good behind the bird. And then I just maneuvered this part around until it was almost there. And so they're overlapping by a bit. But that was how I got the peacock to have a shadow behind him. This is, of course, the stamp from the stamp set. And this is what I was talking about, how those stamps are kind of cute accent stamps. You can do them on the inside or the outside of the stamp. And then, of course, I put bling on him everywhere. I didn't do anything on the inside of that one. Ooh, I liked how this card came out. So this card, I took the white, the Whisper White base, and I opened it up and cut the peacock out. Then I cut off 1 inch of the card, and I put the foil paper, the peacock color, is to the back. And then I stuck the white peacock back on top of that, and then on top of that I put a black peacock. And then on the back of that is another peacock. So it's almost like a little Oreo cookie there. So he's pretty sturdy. He's not flimsy. And then he's hanging on, he's just glued here, and then the other two were glued together on top. That was how I did him. I hope that made sense. And then, of course, on the inside, I just put the pretty foil paper and a place to write a sentiment, and the feather cut out of the foil paper again. It's so pretty. So that's what it looks like on the inside when you open him up. And then the reversible ribbon and the branches, and of course bling. I really like the way that card turned out. It was cute. So I wanted to show you one without any peacocks at all. Just, there we go. Just the pretty paper, the designer series paper, and the ribbon. And these feathers can, I think, dress up any card. They're just really pretty the way they cut out. And then I did this card with one of the other demonstrators that I know, Peacock built, and I want to show you this one because it's really pretty. It's just the paper and one of the sentiments, and so I really like the paper just by itself too. It's very pretty paper. Okay, so if you stuck around to the end of the video, that means you want to see my tip. So one of my tips for stamping the peacock is, tip number 1 is get a Stamparatus, because it will really help you to stamp this peacock. I'm going to move you back up higher so that you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So, you need a Stamparatus. So I've already loaded up my stamps on here. And the way that I did that was I put down a piece of, this is just copy paper, and I inked up my peacock and I stamped him. And then I took the other stamp, the detailed part of the stamp, and I just lined it up on there. And you can see I've used my stamps. They're definitely stained for good. I like that when I stain up my stamps. It makes me feel like I used them. But so I can see really easily where they go. And so I just have my second stamp lined up on the second board. So let's say that you want to cut out your peacock once you stamp him. You can go one of two ways. And here is tip number 2. Take your peacock and cut him out first. And with the stencil part that's left, so this is where I know he's going to stamp, and I have it all taped down. Take your stencil part and line up your peacock right where you want him to cut out, because you don't want it to where there's this giant white side on one side of him. After you've got it all lined up right exactly where you wish he would stamp on your thing, then that's where you're going to put your magnets down, and then take your peacock and put him back into your little stencil here. And so he's back in his little home. Then, I don't have any ink. Let's stamp him with, what do you say, pretty peacock. So ink up your Stamparatus, or your stamp on your Stamparatus. That looks really good. And you're just gonna drop him here. I hope he hasn't moved. I've done a lot of work with this stamp. He's been floating around my desk for about a week. We're fixing to find out. Let's see how well we like that. And then just carefully pull it off. Ooh, it's off. Okay, we're going to reline it. You get to see how it happens, how it really, really happens. So we're going to take a piece of scrap paper. here we go. We're going to take a piece of scrap paper and we're going to remove this one because he's obviously off. And I want to show you how this really works. But I've had that stamp on here for about a week now, and I've moved him around. And even when I was stamping him, I didn't take him off. Okay, so we got that all taped down again. Let's see where he really is. Okay, so you're going to take your peacock. I want to make sure that stays. And stamp him. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, we're going to stamp him there because that is where he's stamping. Next, you need... I'm going to have to cut out a peacock. I don't have a peacock. We're going to line this up to where... Oh, we need to do the second part too because the tail is long. The tail is a little bit longer than the bottom of the peacock stamp. So we have to stamp that to see how far down it goes. We're going to do it in orange. In Coastal Cabana orange. So that we see it. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm telling you, this peacock is so fun to stamp. You can just go on and on with the colors. Like I said, I stamped a ton of them. Okay, so back to sticking him back here. Right? No, right there. Looks perfect. Okay, putting the magnets down. And I'm going to have to cut out a peacock really quick. I'm sorry for the delay. My favorite die machine is just right here, though it will only take me a second. Okay, got a peacock. So, I'm going to stick him back in here. And then ink up our peacock again. With the pretty peacock. Let's hope it works this time. It usually does. Pull him back. Well, this is how you prove that the Stamparatus works. I need to get that little part right there. Other than that, he's perfect. Push down on that. Lift him back up. There we go. So, he's nicely inked up in the pretty peacock. And by loading it up on the Stamparatus, you can see that it makes lining up the peacock a lot easier. Now, I hope this one hasn't moved. Let's just have a looky-loo. Nope, it's going to stamp right where I want it to. I'm just looking that this stamp lines up right inside these eyes, and then this part lines up with the little part of his back. Okay, let me stamp or ink him up with the Coastal Cabana, because that was interesting, wasn't it? Ooh, I got it all over this the pad. But you're going to see, too, that that really doesn't matter if you're messy lizard either. Ooh, look how pretty. So, see how he stayed inside the white lines pretty good? Pretty evenly? That trick pretty much works for me every time. I should have checked it before I showed it to you the first time, but there's that one. Okay, so let's say, though, that instead that you've already stamped up this beautiful peacock and you're just in love with this peacock, and that's the one that you want to cut out. So tip number 3 is, if you've already stamped up a beautiful peacock that you're in love with and you want to cut it out and you don't want it to end up like this, where you have half the peacock hanging off of the die, then my tip is that you take one of the stencils from the peacocks that you've already cut out and line that stencil up. I'm just calling it a stencil. You can call it, it's trash, whatever. Line it up to where you're happy with this is where you wish this peacock would cut out. Get some tape, and this is just trash, so it doesn't matter. It's just going to be left over. It's not even going to be on your paper or your cutout. Well, don't get it on there. That one would have been close. Okay, so make sure he's taped down pretty good. He's kind of coming off the edge on this side. I don't like that. I'm going to leave it. Okay. You need the die. Just wiggle it a little bit and you can feel it sit right in the spot where it needs to be. And you're going to take that over to your die cutting machine and just cut it out. And so, ooh, I really want to show you. I'm going to bring it over there. It's probably going to wiggle the table, but I want to show you. So here we go. You just stick the die, and you can feel it sit in the spot when it's there. There it is. It sat in the spot. And just stick your top plate on. Hold it down. And hopefully this one worked too. It worked pretty good. I like it. I don't know that I lined up the stamp perfect this time, but there you go. You can see that there's a pretty good white halo, whatever, around the whole bird. So that's my tip number 3 for making sure that when you stamp these pretty birds that they cut out perfectly and you don't end up with this and make yourself frustrated. Same with stamping the bird. If he's much easier to stamp if you get a stamparatus. The other reason the other machines won't work is because they don't have 2, and you need 2 so that you don't have to unload and reload the bird. You can just stamp on and on and on and have as much fun as I did if you put him on a stamparatus. Well, all right, stampers, thank you for watching my video. Hopefully you'll subscribe so you won't miss any of my videos. And thank you for watching, and have a great day. Bye.